This is the Talkin Bout the Hoosiers podcast, presented by HoosierIllustrated.com.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to episode 4. I guess episode 5. I don't know why said 4, but talking about the
Yeah,
Hoosiers
we're at 5
podcast.
now.
Yeah, we're up to
Yeah,
5. Presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. I'm joined by Kyler Staley, just you and me today. How are you, Kyler?
I'm doing good. Dang, it's crazy that we had our first 2 episodes, first 3, and then we haven't had a full squad since. So hopefully we can get that back next week. I know Alec and I have been busy with certain things and stuff, but you've been a constant. You've been a constant for the podcast, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, last week was just me and Alec. Week before, just me and you. Now we're you and me again. Hopefully next week. You know what?
Yeah.
That's how it'll probably work. We'll probably have all 3 of us next week, but like at the same time, there's no IU football game next week, so that
Right.
would be the week we get that all 3 of us on the pod.
Right. Maybe we need a bye week, with how covering IU football's been, maybe we deserve a bye week. Who knows? Everything.
Yeah,
Maybe we can do a little bit more in-depth basketball coverage. I don't know. We'll figure it out. We'll determine what we talk about next week sometime.
Yeah, after this after this past week especially, but I'm guessing next week with it being a bye week, it'll probably be a pretty short podcast, maybe a little recruiting update and then a little talk from this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, for sure, man.
All right, speaking of recruiting, I think we should there's not too much to report for IU basketball. I mean, we have some cool really good stories, one about Mackenzie Baco that was just written. I think Alec wrote that. He also had one about Kalel Ware. I have one about Xavier Johnson. There's some cool basketball stuff up, ton of recruiting updates. But the first place we got to start is Liam McNeely. Last night, or I believe it was last night, Trilly Donovan, who is if you don't know who Trilly Donovan is, he is like the Woj, the Adam Schefter of college basketball recruiting, and decide like figuring out where recruits are going to go before it's announced publicly.
Right, and you don't know who he is. And it's awesome that we have him part of the Full Ride Network as well. So that's what makes it even better. Burnerball.com, I think, is where you can find a lot of his stuff and everything. I mean, I don't know where that guy finds his information, who his sources are and stuff, but he's good about it, but everything. But yeah, you talked about Liam McNeely. You throw in Trilly Donovan, Tipton from On3, and then Andrew Slater. All 3 of those guys made quite a bit of hints with Liam McNeely right now. It's looking really good for Indiana. That's basically all I can say at this moment in time, but it's really looking good for Indiana. You go back to a couple weeks ago with the whole coaching staff going down to Montverde Academy, and just way back to last year, and just the great recruiting that they have done with this whole entire recruitment. The relationship that they built with Liam from start to finish, honestly. I mean, they started recruiting Liam before Liam even really popped off. Honestly, I remember watching Liam early in the spring of last year. He wasn't getting as much as attention as what he is now. He's still newer on the recruiting scene, and all the schools had a lot of interest in him, but none really pressed for him. But I mean, it's looking good for Indiana right now. Obviously, Liam, per some reports, you talk about with Jeff Goodman and everything. He said that, decision's still not final yet. It's still going to come down to Indiana and Kansas, with Texas being out and everything. But you never know in this time of, this era that we're in with recruiting, anything changes on a fly. I mean, you go back to Mackenzie and Baco. I think everybody thought that Kansas was a for sure lock, and then he ends up at Indiana and everything. So you never know what's going to happen, but you have a really strong feeling if you're an Indiana fan or you're in the media or whatever, that involves Indiana. You have a pretty strong feeling that it is Liam McNeely is going to go to Indiana, but we'll just have to kind of wait and see when Liam makes his decision public.
Yeah, I mean, I think the expectation is he commits to Indiana relatively soon, but it's Bill Self at Kansas. You can't count
Yep.
Bill Self out. I think Trilly Donovan had a tweet immediately after that he is a gangster. And Bill Self, over the last 5 years, has, especially with Coach K retiring, Jay Wright retiring, he's really cemented himself as probably the top guy for consistent recruiting. And he might not have the number 1 class year after year, but he just gets guys that fit the program and fit the mold. And Kansas is great year after year, and it's because of Bill Self.
Yeah, absolutely. A ton of respect goes to Bill Self as a coaching, or just as a coach in general and everything. The way he's been recruiting, you look at he's gotten Flory Badunga who Indiana had a lot of interest in and everything, and he's the best big, arguably the best prospect in the 2024 class. Went out and got him, built a strong relationship with him, and ended up, getting Florida to commit and everything. But you can't count out, like you said, you can't count out Bill Self. And I think it's kind of funny when you look at Indiana and Kansas, they have slowly became a kind of a recruiting rivals in a way. You look at what they did, Indiana was involved with Flory for the longest time. And then, now with Mackenzie and Baco and Liam McNeely, I mean, this is pretty sweet. And honestly, you go credit to Mike Woodson. I mean, he's really brought Indiana back to this type of, national recruiting that they're doing. There's no way you look back at Archie Miller's era. There's no way that this would be a possibility. Tom Crean, maybe, if you want to go back that far. I mean, he was recruiting some high level recruits and brought in some high level guys during his tenure, but Mike Woodson, he's doing exactly what he said he was going to do. He's going to recruit the best players. And he's going to try to bring Indiana back on top at a national level. And, getting Liam McNeely, that would be pretty huge.
Yeah, and I think McNeely could be a stepping stone for other prospects. But like what Woodson, he's getting the top, or he's in the conversation from the top guys. You mentioned it. It wasn't something that we saw from Archie Miller. Indiana just was never really a part of the conversation for the top recruits. But it's also recruits are seeing what Woodson has done in 2 years. Well, he's had 2 NBA draft picks in 2 years with the program. He turned Jalen Hood-Schifino from he was a high, very, very good recruit, but Hood-Schifino developed so much in his freshman year and turned him into a lottery pick or just outside the lottery. Trey Jackson Davis was a guy who was very good at college, but he turned him into probably the second best player in college basketball last season, if not the best. So
yeah, for sure. Going like just Mike Woodson, I mean, just his development of those players. I mean, you're going to look back years down the road, what, Mike Woodson did as far as recruiting and stuff, however his tenure ends up, turning out to be. But, you're going to look at the foundation of the Jalen Hood-Schifino development and especially the Trace Jackson Davis development. That's a big reason why Khalil Ware, decided to transfer from Oregon to Indiana. One, there was a void that needed to be filled. So, Ware was going to come in and play right away, but also you look at what he did with Trace Jackson Davis, Mike Woodson, look what he did and developed him into arguably the best player last year, depending who you talk to and everything. So it's just outstanding. Those 2 guys, Hood-Schifino and Jackson Davis, they did so much for the program during the time, and, credit a lot to Mike Woodson and everything, and Lee McNeely. No matter where he goes, whether it's Indiana or Kansas, I mean, he's going to get some great development. I mean, Kansas, you look at that, his comparison is Grady Dick. With that, he's going to come in and be that if he decides to go with Kansas and everything. But Liam McNeely, all signs, it looks like it's pointing towards Indiana, but at this point in time, we're just going to have to kind of wait and see.
And then Liam McNeely could be the first stone to fall this year. I mean, there's another big name point guard, Boogie Fland. Indiana kind of started off as like a dark horse, not really like in the main running, and now it seems like Indiana's right there in the Boogie Fland recruiting with Kentucky and Alabama.
Yeah, they've become a player for sure. Like you said, it was kind of a dark horse type of thing. There wasn't, if I can remember back, there wasn't a whole lot of. I mean, there was interest, but there wasn't any hard-pressed interest, if you want to look at that. It wasn't like Mike Woodson was recruiting Boogie Fland like he was recruiting Liam McNeely from the start. There was kind of just, hot and cold moments with that, but I feel like things started really ramping up, towards the beginning of this year, around the January, February time or whatever, when Boogie ended up coming on an official visit and stuff. Yeah, they're a real player now, and they built a good relationship with his family and everything. It's going to come down to Kentucky and Alabama. I think Kentucky right now is considered the front runner and everything, but it's kind of a 1A, 1B, 1C type of thing. I know Boogie Fland just came off of his Alabama official visit, and by all accounts, it looks like his Maryland visit might be canceled. So I think it's going to come down to those 3. Only time will tell with that one. I think that he is wanting to commit sooner rather than later with everything. I don't think he's going to go into his high school senior season without committing to a school yet. But it's just kind of a wait and see thing, you know. Mike Woodson, John Calipari, Nate Oates, they all made that trip to New York to do in-home visits with him, and they had that coach's seminar as well. So those guys knew exactly what they were doing with that and everything. So it's definitely a three-headed horse race right now with that. But Boogie Flan, if you could get either Boogie Flan or Liam McNeely, one of those dominoes to fall, you know, it could be a good chance that, you know, Indiana could end up with both of them, which would be huge. I mean, you automatically put them in the top 5 conversation for recruiting classes and stuff because you got 2 5-stars. And then after that, it's just all about filler at that point. You see what other high school recruits like a Derek Queen or someone like that wants to come in or whatever, or if not, then you hit the transfer portal for next year to fill in those gaps on whoever leaves. But Boogie Flan, Indiana's definitely a player. Obviously, they're a player with Liam McNeely. You know, Indiana's doing, you know, really good work right now. It's going to be a heartbreaker for a lot of Indiana fans. If, let's say, worst case scenario, both of them don't end up at Indiana. I don't think that's the case in my gut feeling, but we're just going to kind of wait and see right now. That's just kind of the beauty of recruiting. You kind of just, you know, you hear a lot of rumors and stuff, but at the same time, you just kind of got to wait and see what the kids are going to decide at the end of the day.
I mean, that's the thing. It's 17 and 18-year-olds making this decision. So that's a big thing. People kind of, it seems like they forget, like these college athletes are not adults, so it's not professional. So when they're making this decision, the littlest thing could make the biggest difference to them. You never really know what's going on in their head when they're going to make this decision. So
Right.
while we think we have an idea of where Boogie Flan might end up, where Liam McNeely might end up, really don't know until they actually commit and sign. So it'll be
Right.
really interesting to monitor moving forward.
Right. It comes down, you talked to a lot of recruits real quickly here. It comes down to the fit, and then it comes down to the family relationship, how they interact with their families most of the time. And nowadays it comes down to NIL, whether you want to admit it or not, or whatever. Those are pretty much the 3 that you look at this point in time when it comes to recruiting. If all 3 of those items are checked off when it comes to recruit, then you've got a pretty good chance to land them and everything. So it is what it is with the NIL. It's here to stay, like Mike Woodson always says and everything. But you know, when you're a coach and you're recruiting these high-level players, you got to make the case. You got to make the great sales pitch to them, why they fit in your style, why they fit in your program. You know, you've got to build that relationship with their families. And if you recruit a player long enough, you do develop a really good relationships with the parents, with the grandparents, the siblings, and all that stuff. You know, you talk to Mackenzie and Baco. I think he talked about, you know, his mom being a big factor in how he ended up in Indiana and stuff. So, and that's the same with any other high school recruit that any coach in, you know, the college world recruits. So those are the 3 things you got to check off when you're a recruit and you're looking for a potential good fit and everything. But we've said it multiple times already in this podcast. Indiana's a player in both Boogie Flan and Liam McNeely. So we're just going to see where those guys end up at.
Yeah, with that, I think it's we should probably move to some IU football because that's the team that played last week and is playing again this Saturday. I think we should start with the Akron game. Was obviously not what Indiana fans hoped for. They did pull out the victory 29-27 in the 4th overtime, but just an ugly, ugly performance from the offense. Just never got anything going. Taven Jackson struggled. The run game struggled. Just not what you wanted from Indiana against the MAC team.
No, I mean, it's a pretty embarrassing performance if we're going to be completely honest. And I think at this point in time, you've got to be honest when it comes to the IU football program in the current state. You know, you showed a lot of fight in that second half of the Louisville game, and you thought maybe, okay, we can go in, you know, we can't take this MAC team lightly or whatever. Go in, we're just going to have to play our style of football and stuff. They did the exact, you know, complete opposite of what they should have done. They should have came in, built, you know, continued the confidence that they had in the second half of the Louisville game. They should have took care of business against a MAC school that, if I can remember correctly, they're not projected to be very high in the MAC or whatever. I know they gave Kentucky a little bit of a fight, but Kentucky ended up beating them by like 30+ points or so. But Indiana is not in a position where they can take a team lightly like this.
Mm-hmm.
They should have came in and they should have took care of business in a very dominant fashion. I'm not saying as dominant as what Indiana State game was, but they should have came in and took care of business and won by, I would say, 16+ points. Just pathetic. It really is. And it's just, you know, you get a lot of people off of the IU football bandwagon now. You get a lot of people, that's the thing with Indiana fans. That's kind of the stigma that people have built is, when Indiana football goes down the drain, when they show performances like this, it's, oh, let's get ready for basketball season and everything. And you can't sustain that if you're a program like that. You can't get the Indiana fans to buy into that and stuff. So at this point in time, there's not a lot of confidence with Indiana going into the Big Ten schedule and everything. They got Maryland this weekend. Not a lot of confidence with that one. And rightfully so. Really, really disappointing offensive performances. I just don't. Offensive play calling is a big question right now. And it's very, very frustrating to watch, from a media standpoint and from a fan standpoint and everything. And you just really don't know what's going on and, why they don't trust their players, their playmakers to make these plays and stuff. And it's just really frustrating overall if you're an Indiana fan and you just don't have a lot of confidence going into this Maryland game.
Yeah, the play calling, especially in the red zone, was terrible. I mean, we saw it twice. Lewis Moore gets a huge interception. Indiana has a chance to go up 14 points. First and goal from the 4-yard line. Can't punch it in. I just don't understand what the play call is. Walt Bell on third down brings in Donovan McCulley for a Wildcat QBC, which, you know what? I don't hate that. Running it once, see if you can do it. McCulley's a big guy. He's athletic, a really good runner, better runner than Jackson. So why not try it? Does not work. They don't get any push. So on fourth and goal at the 1, they run it again. I didn't know why, what is going through Walt Bell's mind there to think that is the play call there. And we've seen this issue all season. It cost Indiana the Louisville game. You had a goal to go situation and you couldn't punch it in. And it happened twice in the Akron game. The second time in the fourth, it was either late third quarter, early fourth quarter. I want to say it was early fourth quarter. Indiana had a chance to put them up 2 scores, but they had to settle for the field goal because they couldn't punch it in from 1 yard. And they tried another QB sneak with Taven Jackson. The O-line was not good. This was a game they should have been able to dominate, and there was no reason they were not getting the push that they weren't getting any push, and there's no reason for that against the MAC school. Boset had done a good job. It looked like prior to that, Boset had done a good job. It looked like the offensive line had improved in the past 2 years, but it's just really not the case against Akron. And now you head into the heart of the schedule, and if the O-line can't hold up and you have a redshirt freshman quarterback, just can't really like Indiana's chances moving forward.
No, you can't. It's yeah, the offensive line, I want to stick with that kind of point there. They had shown improvements. I feel like we can all agree on that for the first few games of the season. Going back, like you mentioned, Akron just kind of ate them up. Their front seven really ate them up and everything. And they took a step back. They took a step back to what the O-line has been the past 2 years and everything, and not giving the quarterback enough time to make these plays and stuff. And like you said, if the O-line is not going to live up to the par that they have set for the first few games of the season, after game aside, then having a redshirt freshman back there that's still trying to figure it out and still trying to get used to the college game, that spells disaster right there. Especially when you go up a good team like Maryland, which they've shown that they can be and everything, a pretty dangerous team, both on both sides of the ball and everything. But then you go back to the offensive play calling. Walt Bell, and I think Tom Allen might have said this too. I'm not entirely sure who exactly said it, but they have identified Indiana. We are a run first team. Nothing wrong with that. That's a run first team and everything. But the problem is, if you're constantly just consistently running the ball every single play, not showing any of the passing, not showing any openness in the playbook or whatever, not trying to be creative at all, it gets really, really stale. It gets really stale, and it makes defensive, coordinators, the defensive play callers and everything on the other team, it makes their job pretty easy to figure out what you're going to do and everything. And the problem is when they want to do these, creative plays or whatever, they're kind of doing them at the wrong time. They're not picking the right time to use their creativeness in the offensive play calling or whatever. It's just, man, a lot of questions and stuff. It's really hard to figure out, honestly. And it's hard to put into words exactly what you're watching. But right now, it's just not working. The play calling's got to get better. And we've said that ever since the Ohio State game and everything, and it has just not gotten better. Other than the Louisville second half. That's all I will say with that. That was the only time where you felt the offensive play calling was actually clicking. That last play aside, that not going for the QB sneak aside or whatever. But that was really the only time where you felt everything was clicking, and you were letting Taven Jackson go out there and make plays like he was brought in to do and stuff. But Akron was multiple steps back and everything. You got the win and everything. Congratulations with that, but you didn't do it with a lot of confidence. That's for sure.
Yeah, so I want to go back to something you said. Indiana, Tom Allen, Walt Bell, they said that Indiana wants to be a run first team. That's, having an identity is great. You need an identity for your offenses, just for your football team in general. But I want to take a look at the 4 games of the season thus far. Indiana's rushing stats against Ohio State, one of the best fronts they're going to play all year. 33 attempts for 71 yards, good for 2.2 yards per carry. Then you take Indiana State, the worst team Indiana will play all year. An FCS team that is a bad FCS school. Indiana ran all over them. 42 carries, 214 yards, 5.1 yards per carry, and 5 touchdowns. Then go back to FBS schools, Louisville. 27 for 58, 2.1 yards per attempt, but they scored a rushing touchdown. And then Akron, a bad MAC team. 34 attempts, 92 yards, 2.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Indiana is averaging less than 2.5 yards per carry against FBS schools. They're averaging 3.2. If you include the Indiana State, you can't be a run-first team in a running offense if you can't run the ball, and Indiana can't run the football. So those comments are just – it's pretty much saying that Indiana is going to be bad this year. If Tom Allen and Walt Bell are convinced that they're going to be a run-first team, but they can't even run the football, I just don't know what to think of that.
Yeah, they say something like that. I mean, honestly, do they know what type of team they are? Honestly, and I just don't want to sit here and just bash Indiana football and stuff like that. That's not my intentions or whatever. I'm just trying to speak kind of like what we're seeing and everything like that. But I don't know. That is questionable. And the stats that you read off and everything, that's pretty eye-opening, don't you say? If Indiana's going to be a run first, you would expect them to be like, oh, we average, over 4 yards per carry or something like that every game or whatever. That's just not happening. And then you really can kind of weed that out a little bit. And then you realize like, wait, if that's the case, is the offensive line actually better than what we're saying or whatever? Like, have they shown that much improvement? Because if you go off the running stats, not really. I would say pass protection, they have done a really good job and everything, but as far as run blocking, and Tom Allen said this earlier this week, the offensive line when it comes to run blocking is not up to par what they need to be and stuff. It's fine. At the end of the day, if you want to be a run first team, that's fine, like we said and everything, but same time, you got to be able to have a passing attack as well, or you're a pretty easy offense to figure out and everything, and Walt Bell's kind of proved that so far this season.
Yeah, I mean, even last year the running game struggled. Outside of Michigan State, Indiana did not average more than 4 yards per carry against against an FBS school. Idaho was the only other school Indiana averaged more than 4 yards a carry in a game. Or sorry, Michigan State and Purdue were the only FBS schools Indiana averaged more than 4 yards per game. And that was when the entire offense was pretty much give it to Donovan McCulley and let him make a play, run the football, or Dexter Williams prior to the injury. Sorry. Going back to 2021 with the McCulley. But yeah, the offense struggled. I mean, 3 turnovers by the defense kind of saved the team, though. I mean, Lewis Moore had maybe the game of his career. 2 interceptions, took 1 back to the 4-yard line, which Indiana couldn't punch in, and then took 1 back to the house, which, I mean, didn't win Indiana the game, but if he doesn't score that, Indiana probably loses that game in regulation.
I mean, there's a good chance everything, you got to give credit to the Indiana secondary this year. I mean, I remember going into the first podcast that we did and talking about how there's so many question marks with this Indiana secondary, but man, Lewis Moore, Nick Toomer, those guys have really, really stepped up this year and stuff. And, before the Akron game and everything, that Indiana front 7 was spectacular and stuff. But I think the Indiana front 7 probably had their worst game of the season so far. You go 4 games in or whatever. And this is their worst game. It's pretty good and everything, but that Indiana secondary is legit. If Lewis Moore and Nick Toomer can continue to play like they have been, this year, along with the other secondary guys. I mean, they're going to keep Indiana in some games and everything, but I mean, you got to give credit to them. They arguably won the game for Indiana in this ugly, ugly Akron game.
Yeah, I want to add one more name. Phil Dunham, 3 interceptions now in the season for the secondary. He's been incredible. I mean, this secondary has been, you said it, I mean, they've been a lot better than people thought. The D line, I mean, I wouldn't say they struggled because they were getting pressure, but it just seemed like they really struggled to contain DJ Irons in the pocket. I mean, every time Indiana ran a lot of man coverage against Akron, and as a result, they don't have the guys just waiting outside for when the quarterback rolls out and tries to make a play with his feet. And as a result, DJ Irons, 141 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
Yep. I mean, we've been beating it, forever and everything. But I mean, it's just Indiana, man. They're just overall, they're a hard team to figure out. When you say, I mean, it's just, there's so many highs, so many lows with this team and everything. They show flashes and everything. But at the end of the day, I think it comes down to the offensive play calling. And I think that's what has been the biggest struggle and everything with this. Like I said earlier, you beat Akron. Good job. That's what you were supposed to do. But the way you did it, it gets a lot of people off of the bandwagon and everything. And it's just like, yeah, I mean, you just can't trust them. What was the game last year? Was it Western Kentucky that went into overtime or whatever? Yeah. Same thing. I mean, it's pretty much a mirror image of what exactly happened last year. But they're going into Big Ten play now. Performances like that's not going to cut it. I mean, you're going to get put out of the game pretty quickly in the college game if you come out like that and everything. So they got a tough challenge with Maryland on the road this weekend. They're pretty much going to have to play perfect, in my opinion, for them to go out and get a road win.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get to Maryland in a little bit. I just want to get 2 more things in there from the overtime. 2 plays, Indiana on the 2-point conversion. The first one, Taven Jackson seemed like he had time, made his reads. Jalen Lucas is wide open on the right side of the field. There is not a single player on the right side of the end zone other than Jalen Lucas. Taven doesn't even look, throws into traffic, incomplete. And then Taven, after the game, kind of said his read was to make that 1, 2, 3. Those first 2 reads, he never looks to Lucas in that, but can't be a robot at the quarterback position. You got to be like, see the field, and even if it's not your read, understanding, hey, this guy's wide open. I'm pretty sure I was told Taven, I wasn't there, but I was told he kind of went back and was like, yeah, that was on him in his Q&A Monday, but still was not great for, again, he's a young quarterback, but that's just not what you want in a situation like that. You want him to feel comfortable to look off his reads and hit the guy open, even if it's not his read.
It's kind of baffling when you think about it. How is Jalen Lucas, the best player on the team, not a part of those reads? You know what I mean? I feel like he should be a go-to guy in that situation. And there's that video that I feel like a lot of people have seen where, Jalen Lucas has got his head down and everything, and he's frustrated because he's wide open or whatever. A lot of people were bashing, oh, that's poor. Yeah, it's being a poor teammate, blah, 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 and stuff. But no, I think at the end of the day, I think Jalen Lucas was rightfully upset in that situation. I think he had every right to be and stuff. He is the best player on that team. He makes plays happen on that team, but it's just baffling to me how your best player is not a part of those 3 reads that you have or whatever. You mean to tell me he's the 4th option on an offense and stuff? So, and you mentioned about being robotic at the quarterback position. This whole offense has been robotic from, one. So.
Yeah, you mentioned, I mean, Jalen Lucas is probably the best offense player on Indiana. Against Louisville, he had 10 catches for, I'm close to 100 yards around there.
Yeah, I think so.
Akron, not a single target. That can't happen. Like, yes, he's a good runner, but Indiana proceeded play after play, handed off Jalen Lucas and let him run up the gut, which at 5'8", 5'10", however tall, he's not a big guy. He's not someone who's going to win in the trenches like that. He is great in space. You got to throw him the ball, tosses, stretches, plays like that, not running up the gut, which clearly did not work, hasn't worked all year yet. Walt Bell continues to go back to it, which makes no sense.
Yeah, it doesn't. You just don't know why. It almost seems like they would much rather at points use Jalen Lucas as a decoy a lot of times instead of just being like, hey, this is our best player. Let's get him the ball. Let's beat him. Let's do whatever we can to be creative with him and stuff. It's just, well, we said it before and everything. It's just hard to put into words, honestly, man. In a podcast, that's not really good podcasting and everything. But at the same time, it's like, man, you just don't know. You know, just don't know what goes on in the offensive play calling's head, and you just don't know why they do the things that they do. So it's rough. It really is rough to watch at times.
I will say the last 2-point conversion play. The last thing I want to say about Indiana football, or before they about the Akron game, was that was their variation of the Philly special where I believe it was McCulley took the snap, flipped it to Taven, who was lined up in the slot, and then hit DeKeith Carter, who was rolling to the right side of the end zone. It was really cool, creative play, something we haven't seen from Indiana football all season.
Right. And I think that's that's a great play. It's kind of a risky play to put on at the end of the game like that when you're going for a 2-point conversion. But credit, it was well executed and everything by the players and stuff. We're gonna have to see more of that. I think so throughout, these Big Ten games and stuff, because you're going to go in, Indiana's going to go in. They will be the underdog for the remaining of the season. No matter what game they are in or whatever, they're going to be the underdog. They've got to be able to do plays like that. They got to make things exciting. They got to, you got to throw teams off guards and stuff. They can't just be a 3 downs, run it, do whatever, run it up the middle. That's what we're going to do, blah, blah, blah. And then we're just going to go home. You just can't do that. So, yeah, I think we should see more of that and stuff with it. But, they got to pick the right times to do that as well.
Yeah, I think we're going to see more risks moving forward, ideally from Walt Bell in the offense. But with that, I think we should move to Maryland this week, upcoming on Saturday, with Indiana traveling to take on Maryland and Talia Tagovailoa. There's a lot to look at. Maryland 4-0 on the year, has been very good. Just blew out Michigan State, who is a team that a lot of people have on the same level as IU through their early part of the season. They also blew out Virginia. Every single game they've played has been a blowout. They've scored 30 points or more in every single game. That offense is really good, and it's going to be the Indiana defense is going to need to step up if Indiana is going to want to pull off the upset.
Yeah, absolutely. And it starts with their quarterback. Is it Tulia? Is that how you pronounce his first name?
I think it's Talia.
Talia? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, very, very hard name for the Southern Indiana guy to pronounce and everything. But Maryland's arguably one of the better tems in the Big Ten right now. They've really proved it and everything like that. Indiana probably couldn't you look at the schedule and everything, Indiana's got a tough one from the start. Maryland's red hot right now. You're going on the road. You don't even get them at home or whatever. You're going on the road and you're coming off an Akron game where you didn't really show any promise, any confidence going into this game and everything. So you don't want to get too deep into it and everything, but Indiana's going to have to play perfect in this game. Both sides of the ball. Defense is going to have to really step up against this high-power offense. The offensive side of Indiana, they're going to have to be creative. There's not a whole lot of hope that they will be with that and everything. So you'll just see what Indiana can do and everything. But it's not a very confident one going into this one.
No, you can't say it is. I mean, Maryland is very talented. Roman Hemby, their number 1 running back, has almost 350 total yards in 4 games and 4 touchdowns on the year, averaging 5 yards a carry. Stopping him is going to be key because Talia Tagovailoa in the play action game is so dangerous, and preventing him from being able to drop back in those play actions where linebackers bite and he can take those deep shots, that's going to be a huge key for Indiana's defense. I also think
for sure.
Maryland coach Mike Locksley has done an incredible job since leaving the Alabama to take over the Maryland job. He has improved the roster every single year since he's been there. Started, I think, was 3-9 his first year, 2-3 in the 2020 year, and then 7-6, got a bowl game. 2022, they go 8-5, and now they're 4-0 this year. He's done a great job. They're recruiting talent, and Maryland is a very good football team this year, and it's going to be very tough for Indiana, especially on the road.
Yeah, they're honestly, they're a fun team to watch. Honestly, the few times that I've been able to watch them this season and stuff, they're fun. They have a lot of electricity to their offense. They have, the defensive playmakers, like you said, they're going out and they're recruiting really good talent and stuff. I know it's been a while since Maryland's been kind of a really good football program and everything, but I mean, they're really making a statement this year. I think they're one of the sleepers in the Big Ten this year to make a Big Ten championship run. with that and stuff. But I mean, like I said, it starts with their quarterback. They've got one of the best quarterbacks, not only in the Big Ten, but I think in all of college football and everything. A lot of talent from him. Obviously the younger brother of Tua, who's killing it right now with the Dolphins right now, and obviously he had his success with Alabama and stuff. But yeah, it's a tough one for Indiana for sure. Like we've said multiple times and stuff. But let's say best case scenario, Indiana could go in there and stuff. They could pull off the upset win. That would help get some confidence back into the program and stuff right now. But as far as right now, before the game even starts, not a lot of hope for Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, if Indiana is able to pull off the upset, bowl season is right back on, because you can see potentially three more wins on the schedule if they're able to beat Maryland. But it's going to be a very tough environment, tough game, especially on the road. I think, Kyler, who's your key player, position group? What's the key for Indiana heading into this one?
So this one's kind of a cop-out answer and everything, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it and everything because I've done nothing but harp the offensive side of the ball. But I'm just going to say it. The key players, the position group, whatever you want to call it, it's the offensive coaching staff. It's the play callers. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at right now with that and everything. I don't want to say it's one position group on the field or another or whatever. You got to show a lot of creativeness. You got to show a lot of confidence in your offensive playmakers, the coaching staff, whoever's calling the plays and stuff, whoever's making the final decisions, whether that be Walt Bell, whether that be Tom Allen or whoever. Yeah, those are my guys right there. Those are the absolute key factors in this game, I think. I think the defense is going to show up for Indiana as much as they can. It all comes down to the offensive side of the ball. You got to step up, got to make some plays and stuff, got to get you got to take a lot of pride in this game. I think you've got to be getting here and be like, we want to prove a lot of the doubters wrong or whatever. That's kind of my stance on it.
Yeah, I think I'll add to that. I think taking care of the football on offense is going to be key. You can't turn the ball over against Maryland. You can't give Talia Tagovailoa short fields because he is going to score touchdowns. And Indiana has struggled to score touchdowns. So if you want a chance, the offensive play calling, the offense just has to be better, but just can't turn the ball over. My key, it's the secondary. It's also a pretty obvious answer. They're coming off one of their best performances against Akron, played very well in that game, 3 interceptions. But Maryland wants to throw the ball. They can run the ball, but they want to throw the ball down the field. And with Talia Tagovailoa, they do, and they do it very well, averaging 284 yards per game passing and 2 passing touchdowns per game. It's a high-powered offense, and if Indiana is going to want a chance in this one, they're going to have to slow down Talia Tagovailoa, who has 8 touchdowns in 4 games, along with 1,100 yards. So he has been red hot to start the season.
Yep, for sure. I mean, the Indiana secondary has been great. Like you said, last game, again versus Akron's arguably their best game of the year and stuff. But if they can step up and they can keep Indiana in the game, and they could, swing the game a little bit at certain times throughout the games, put some momentum on the offensive side of the ball. Who knows what could happen? It's college football. Anything happens on a given Saturday. So I really like that key position group with you and everything that you picked.
Yeah, I mean, winning the turnover battle is so key. If you can give your offense short fields, even if it doesn't result in touchdowns, which, let's call it out, is we haven't seen that this year, scoring 3 points in off turnovers can just be such a big momentum swing, and really just you have to win the turnover battle if you want any chance. And Indiana turned the ball over a couple times this past week. That can't happen against a very good football team like Maryland. You can't make mistakes that will shoot yourself in the foot. You can't beat yourself. And that's the thing Indiana almost did last week. They almost beat themselves, and they can't let that happen against Maryland if they want any chance in this one.
Yep. Give yourself a fighting chance at the end of the day.
Yeah. The spread in this one is not very close. Maryland comes in as a 14-point favorites. Kyler, which side are you on that?
Man, I've usually been the optimistic one with Indiana this year and everything, but going off of what I saw with the Akron game or whatever, no confidence in this one. I think Maryland's going to cover this one pretty easily. It's 14, right? So, me saying easily is pretty wild to think of and everything, especially in a conference type of game or whatever. But I think Maryland's going to win this one by, I'm going to say 20 plus. I honestly think that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I think Maryland covers this one easily. I just don't think I don't even think it's about the defense at this point. I just think Indiana's defense has enough to hold Maryland and give the offense a fighting chance, but I just don't see this offense being talented. Maybe not talented enough. I just don't see the execution, because there is talent on this offense, but I just don't see the execution that is going to get Indiana enough points to be in this game. And I think Maryland covers the spread easily. The over-under in this one set at 50.5. Kyler, I've been back and forth. Which way are you going on this one?
50. I'm gonna go under, I think. For this one, I don't have confidence in Indiana's offense. I really don't. I mean, I think Maryland's gonna put up a lot of points. I mean, Indiana's defense is great and everything, but I think that offense is gonna be the best offense that they see all year. With that, so the most well-oiled offense I think so far this year. I should say, but I think Maryland will put up points. I don't think Indiana will, so I'm gonna go with the under on this one.
Yeah, I mean, Indiana's offense is going to be the reason this game goes over under. I don't see Maryland scoring 50 points. I think they have that ability. And I've gone back and forth, but I'm leaning the under. I'm going to take the under as my pick, kind of copy you. You know, you're red hot right now. If we go to the records, Alec is 1-3. I'm in the middle at 3-3, and you're 5-1. So I like, I'm going to follow you. I like my chances on that one. We'll probably get Alec's pick later in the week so we can keep his record going. But yeah, I just don't see Indiana scoring enough points. I think the final of this one ends up around Maryland around 30, 35 points, but Indiana will probably be around 7 to 10. I just don't see Indiana having the firepower on offense enough to score points.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm not going to repeat what we talked about throughout the whole episode and everything, but I mean, you got to bring some hope back into this program. At the end of the day, it's been a roller coaster of a season so far, and we're not even to the middle of the season right now. Lot to prove for Indiana. Hopefully they go in and fight, compete, play until the final whistle and stuff, but we'll just see at the end of the day. I know kickoff's at 3:30 and everything, so a little different for Indiana than what they're used to so far this season. So we'll just see what they do with their first real true road test of the season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot to look forward to. Is there anything else you think we missed before we had sign off here?
No, I mean, just other than that, football, everything. Go check out all of our coverage at HoosierIllustrated.com. We've got a lot of stuff. Basketball season is literally right around the corner, and it's getting exciting and stuff. We just had our Big Ten, or not our Big Ten, but our IU men's and women's media day. A lot of good stories on there and everything. There's a lot of projections coming out right now with the season approaching and stuff. A lot of recruiting updates, which we do such a good job with and everything. We keep everybody informed, and it's all free. So you have to know there's no paywall or whatever. That's what makes us so great and everything. You can go in, check out all of our stuff absolutely for free and everything. And but yeah, a lot of stuff at HoosierIllustrated.com and everything. Too much for me to even talk about at this, to go in depth and everything. We've just got so much. So go check out everything. We got our podcast up, got some highlight videos. We got pretty much everything you can think of. So go check us out there.
Yeah, Kyle, you did my plug for me. So I'm going to sign off here. For all things Indiana, follow Indiana_FRN on Twitter, Facebook. Check out the HoosierIllustrated.com website and make sure to hit subscribe on YouTube and Spotify for Hoosier Illustrated. As always, thank you guys for listening to the Talking About the Hoosiers podcast presented by HoosierIllustrated.com. We'll be back next week with our recap of this weekend's matchup against Maryland and probably some IU basketball news. So see you next week.